Airports are supposed to be gateways, places of arrival, reunion, and return. But for me, for years, Heathrow was not a gateway, it was a trap. Each journey home turned into an interrogation. Each passport check became a reminder that my citizenship was conditional. This is the story of how Britain's spies tried to recruit me with threats, intimidation, and humiliation. I'm Jamal Osman. Welcome to my journalism toolkit. This is where they feel is the safest. More and more British youngsters are coming to Hargeisa. As you speak, people might think you're English or something. Journalism has its blessings and its burdens. The privilege of the job is that people open their doors and share their stories. Strangers trust you with their truth. You can have positive impacts on people's lives. You can be the voice of those with no voice. You visit places you would never have visited, and more. But it also comes with pressure. Everyone you meet wants something. A politician seeks good coverage. A warlord seeks legitimacy. A campaigner seeks your voice for their cause. This is the nature of the profession. But what I faced with British spies went far beyond persuasion. They used threats, intimidation, humiliation. Their message was clear: work for us or we will make your life difficult. They weaponized fear. It was an experience unlike any other I had ever seen. You don't want any of that, especially when you fled war and hardship and came to this country seeking safety. I came to Britain with hope. I trained to become a journalist. It was a hard road, but I built a career. I joined Channel 4 News reporting largely on Africa. But it was when I began traveling frequently for work that another journey began, a darker one. Almost every time I passed through Heathrow, I was stopped, questioned, harassed. I was the only one of my colleagues who was stopped. Yet for me, it became routine. The same questions every time. Where are you from? Have you been in trouble with authorities? At first, I answered patiently, politely, but it never ended there. I was pulled aside, told to sit, and eventually confronted by men and women who claimed they just wanted to chat. Very early on, I informed my editors and colleagues at Channel 4 News. I was given legal advice. I began to recognize the agents, the spies. I called them the Vauxhall guys. They wore grey suits, always in pairs, and waited behind the immigration desks at Heathrow. This was before the electronic gates. The immigration officers would hand over my passport to them instead of giving it back to me. They introduced themselves with first names, common English names. They asked me to follow them to a room. Their questions were predictable. Where have you come from? What story are you working on? Who did you interview? I refused to answer. Then came the offers: a big house, a handsome salary, even the promise of 4 wives. I was always consistent, not interested, not willing to discuss my work. That continued for about a year. Then the threats followed. They told me they could take away my passport, destroy my career, ruin my life. By sharing my story with colleagues, I learned this was a common tactic, a way to recruit people, wear them down until they give in. The spies were not breaking the law, I was advised. I was told to keep calm, remain polite, which at times was impossible. They never kept me longer than about 3 hours. Any longer, and they would have to give me a receipt explaining why I had been detained. That was something they did not want to do to a journalist. They also couldn't seize my videotapes. Seizing material belonging to Channel 4 News would have required going to court. So instead, they frustrated me with delays, letting me go only to be stopped again by customs officers who claimed they needed to check my bag. And all the while, I carried a British passport that never seemed to grant the rights and protections it promised. The harassment continued beyond Heathrow. I started receiving calls from unknown numbers, sometimes silence, sometimes a woman laughing loudly down the line. Outside train stations, strangers would greet me by name, introducing themselves with their fake English names. On a few occasions, a car pulled up beside me at traffic lights, a window rolled down just to say hello. It was all designed to make my life unbearable, to push me toward one conclusion: accept their offer. What made this worse was the contrast with my colleagues. My then editor, Ben DePere, pointed out that years of traveling the world to war zones, to dangerous countries, none of our other colleagues had ever been stopped. The difference, he said, was ethnicity. Ben knew my story well. He had seen my journey from refugee to award-winning reporter. Channel 4 News trusted my judgment, but trust from my employer was not enough. The security services still treated me like a suspect. The ordeal continued for a few years. But my boss and colleagues kept supporting me. My editor did something important. He contacted the security services demanding an explanation. They did not respond. He didn't stop there. He wrote publicly about my harassment, not just as my boss, but as someone appalled by what it said about Britain. He pointed out that if this was happening to me, a journalist in full view of the public, what was happening to young British Somalis with no platform, no visibility, no voice. Inside my passport are the famous words: Her Britannic Majesty's Secretary of State requests and requires all those whom it might concern to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance. I carried that passport just like millions of others, yet it did not carry the same weight. For me, it was a piece of paper that could be challenged, doubted, even ridiculed. Refusing their offers was the only choice I could make, professionally, morally, personally. As a journalist, the foundation of my work rests on trust. Strangers let me into their lives. To betray that trust was and is unthinkable. As a human being, it would have been plain wrong, an act of deception, an act of immorality. From a safety perspective, it would have been reckless. The moment people suspected I was feeding information to spies, I would no longer be safe to work in many places. I would no longer be trusted to tell the stories I was there to report. The line had to be clear. The day a journalist becomes an arm of the state, he stops being a journalist at all. I also think it all depends on your beliefs and your character. Some people grow up reading spy novels, watching romanticized spy movies. But in truth, spies are liars. They have to pretend to be someone else. They assassinate people. They do all sorts of things. That's not what I want to do. The experience left me angry, yes, but also reflective. I came to this country for sanctuary. I worked hard. I built a career. I'm a journalist, a Muslim, an African, a Somali, and I'm also a British citizen. But citizenship does not always mean equality. What my experience with the security services taught me is that to overcome such an ordeal, you have to respect your profession, believe in yourself, be clear about your role as a journalist, understand that you stand apart from the spy industry. You must have conviction, be mentally strong, have faith. My story is only one among many. Thousands of others live under the same suspicion, carrying passports that promise rights which in practice can be denied at will. And yet, through it all, I had something many others did not: an editor, an organization, colleagues who stood by me. Their support not only mattered while I endured the harassment, it ultimately stopped it. Since the day the article was published in The Guardian in May 2014, I have not been stopped or bothered at all. But the lesson remains. Citizenship on paper is not the same as citizenship in practice. And for a journalist, the greatest defense will always be integrity. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.